Qing's Prose Girls' Dormitory. After the summer vacation of the year before last year, I was admitted to Central University and lived in No. 8 West Building. At that time, the women's dormitory of Central University was divided into 4 buildings: East, South, West and North. Each building has its own characteristics. The South building is full of light, and the East building is airy. Well, the North building is beautiful, but the West building is full of bugs. There is a very large room with 5 beds. There is a door on the side of the window that leads to another small room. People who live in this small room must pass through us. Large room, because No. 8 in the West building is the largest room in the all-female dormitory. Other rooms can only accommodate 1 to 3 people, and the personalities of the owners in the room are different, and the shapes are really beautiful. A rectangular room with a door in the middle, a window on both sides of the door, and 2 windows on the opposite side. Mr. White's bed is between these 2 windows, opposite the door. Mei Yin and I sleep next to the door. On the left and right sides, connected head to tail with me, is Wang Xingyuan. Connected with Mei is Li Wengshan, except for Mr. Vaish's study desk, which is in front of her bed. The 4 of us each occupy a window, which is close to our bed. There are 5 bookshelves in the center of the room, with all sides closely connected to form a regular pentagon. End of the intersection facing the door, there is a toilet. Every night you go and I come. There are constant customers, and sometimes there is a risk of insufficient supply, because the 4 of us focus on this toilet when we sleep. Next to it, those who climbed on it look left and right, chatting and laughing happily. The sleeping person did not show that he was full and smelled the stench, and the person sitting on it did not bother to show his buttocks. It only hurt Miss Zhou Mei Wang, who lived in the small room, and the stench was still there. It was unbearable that one could not afford to lose one's identity. So every night when going to bed, one had to cover his nose with a light red silk handkerchief, and he had to spit a few times when he returned to the small room. Of course, Miss Zhou is a distinguished guest in the girls' dormitory in the West Building. She has a father, who is an official in Beijing, and a fiancé who is a comprador in Shanghai, and there are many high-ranking officials and wealthy gentry among her relatives and friends. A charming lady like this, it's Mrs. C's life in the near future. How can she not add some graceful and luxurious decorations? So her face is as thick as pink, her lips are as red as fat, her shoes are as high as her heels, her clothes are as short as they are, her umbrella is as small as a lotus leaf, and her hair is as wrinkled as a sea. Mother-in-law Nana walked in and out of the 3rd year classroom of the Department of Politics, standing and looking at it. There are many. On the opposite side is Wei Dongjin, who is a 4th-year graduate of the Chinese Literature Department. He has unkempt hair, a black cheongsam, and a yellow complexion with freckles. He is only 3 years old, but he looks like a man in his 30s. However, according to high statistics, Zhou is the oldest in the house, not her. The other Mies are the same age as her. Li is again this year, and Wang Xingyuan and I are both 19. In order to rouse my curiosity, I once asked Zhou her age while chatting with her in the room. Unexpectedly, she became unhappy and said that European and American social customs prohibit asking people's age, especially for women, and blamed me as a foreign literature department. Students should not knowingly commit a crime. I hurriedly explained that I was not polite, and I didn't know that Miss had already become a European and American citizen, which violated the motto of asking for customs when entering the country. From now on, I vowed to memorize the book to avoid Mrs. Miss being coquettish. She saw my naughty smile, but there was nothing she could do. After expressing his forgiveness, he said that her chronological age was 2 years and 11 months. If calculated according to Chinese customary law, she would be 14 years old. However, we should use European and American calculations. But these calculation methods did not interest me at all. She had studied physical education for 3 years. Except for 50 meters, 100 meters, etc., she had to use math numbers. Class are played Go. When shouting commands, he only uses a few English words and doesn't care about Newton or Shakespeare. The Chinese language is still useful. The final happiness can make her cry, and the scale of love has to be kept in mind. But in the first few days of school, she didn't seem to have even these interests. She would lie in bed every day, sleep after sleep, and when she opened her eyes, She would lift the blanket to catch bed bugs. After catching 7 people, she was unhappy and caught them again. He pulled a pair of long bloomy pants and threw them on his chest, then fell asleep again. If she hadn't been troubled by things like eating, meeting guests, answering the phone, and urinating all day long, she would have been able to sleep for 4 hours a day and night, or at least 3. This habit of snoozing cannot be tolerated by Li Wengshan. She, Wang Xingyuan and I are both freshmen this year. However, she entered the Department of Chemical Engineering, so she cannot be compared with our Department of Foreign Languages, let alone Wang's Department of Education. She did exercises and experiments all day long, turned on the light when she got up, and lit a candle when she went to bed because the light had already gone out by then. Commoner clothes, plain face, and unique style. Wang called it natural beauty. Although Wei went to bed early and couldn't sleep, he wanted to get up early but was too tired to die. He hummed and chanted King King all day long. The king and I slept irregularly, and sometimes we went out for a walk after dinner. When we passed the door of the reception room, we saw bright lights, a man and a woman smiling attentively, and then we went out arm in arm. The king did not have a lover at the time, although my mother chose a fiancé for me, but he also treated me indifferently. Seeing him intoxicated in love, I couldn't help but feel envious and angry. Maybe they are brother and sister. Wang stared at me. Maybe a relative. I stared at her. In short, even if it's love, it's hypocritical, shallow, and disgusting. I have no choice but to deceive fools like them. We are seeing decline now, and after the carnival comes abandonment and degradation. We seem to have discovered the truth. They looked at each other with a victorious smile, followed behind them, and walked out arm in arm. Although there are many places to visit in Nanjing, there are not many to choose from. It's too far to go. The closest places to CUHK are Arctic Pavilion, Farm, etc. If you go there before 10 o'clock, you will be squeezed out, and you will be criticized by the boys. You don't know what walking posture you should adopt. If the style is appropriate, how can you still have the mood to appreciate this dueling wind and moon? If you want to go to the original farm after 10 o'clock, you can do it, but you will have to bear the curse of many lovers under the thick shadow of the green couple. Once we were on the edge of the farm and we just said, "This is the scene of the willow tops and the moonlight." Huh? When Sikan met Miss Su in the north building, she coaxed me shyly, "Miss Feng, you are really good at destroying people. Miss Zhang and I are friends." I didn't say anything to you, I asked in shock. "You're still pretending to be stupid." She glared at me. "What did you say last night that will ruin people's lives?" "We really didn't know you were there," I said honestly. "You are both blind. Ignore you. You and Wang Xingyuan. These 2 bad boys." I told Wang this later, but she couldn't understand it either. But after that, the 2 of us went to the farm, and the Arctic Pavilion also disappeared. Sometimes I get so bored that I go around the road a few times, and the dust is flying, almost causing trachoma. In the end, I go back to the grass in the women's dormitory and sit and chat. From Queen Elizabeth to the West Tower maid Wang Ma, I feel that Nanjing women are the most beautiful. Disgusting. Fine. Although Nanjing women are not cute, they are much better than you weak and luxurious Zhejiang people. Isn't the so-called national hero Chang XX from Zhejiang? I argued back. The joke is about women, especially Su Hang, who are all smeared with makeup and dragging their long clothes on the floor. But you have never seen Aunt Bigfoot in Suzhou. And I pointed to my nose. You Ningbo women are the most vulgar. You Hunan women are barbarians. We started fighting each other, shouting sharply. Miss Jomi Yu heard the sound and ran down to ask what was going on. Unexpectedly, her high heels stepped on the hem of the cheongsam and she fell, causing a big hole in the silk stockings on her knees. This angered us. "It's almost lights out. Why don't you come and sleep? You are not the female dormitory," Wang retorted. "We are college students now. No one cares about us. I am still afraid of my mother at home, but I can do whatever I want in school. I am also helping." When talking about home, Wang sang Hoin, Sweet Hoin loudly. Her musical talent was well known to the whole school. This time she was inspired to sing when the night was like water, and the sky was full of stars. Of course, it was even more special when the teacher played the piano. It was much better during the pretest. when she sang it on the moonaldreert, and felt that Mirmhand and Tiern the singing stopped for a moment, and they looked at each other with relative sadness. I don't have a mother. Zhou's eyes were obviously filled with tears. Don't you have a lover? Wang suddenly laughed, and everyone's heart immediately became lightened, especially Zhou, who happily told us a lot about the two of them. Anne said, I am half a year in front of him. There is nothing to hide. I love him and I want him to love the real me. I want him to see my true face. I couldn't help but raise my head and smile at her. Then why do you let rouge powder hide your true skin color? Let's all give you a knowing smile. When talking about love issues, Wei always said nothing and deliberately picked up Du's poems to read carefully. But in fact we know that she listened more intently than anyone else. Normally, we usually talk in the form of answers. Wang and I asked questions out of curiosity, while Zhou answered them with gusto based on his experience and ideals. I often ask her, how do men ask for favors from a woman? This type of question is because, although I have received more than 24 men's courtship reports in the past, none of them talked to me in person and changed the words to me in the opposite direction. I have often imagined that a romantic man might come to me in the future to ask for favors. Could it be that as soon as he opened his mouth, he would say, can you be my wife? Or as the letter says, noble queen, let me hide under your throne forever like a wounded white rabbit. If someone really said this in person, I suspect that I would become vomiting from then on. Wang's questions were more romantic than mine. She often asked, does a woman have to close her eyes when stealing a kiss? Isn't it more interesting to kiss a man with sideburns? At that time Li Wengshan, who had just finished algebra and had to urinate, also joined in and said that according to her speculation, the way of kissing would definitely change in the future, because kissing lips must prevent bacterial infection and is unhygienic. After discussing love issues, we discussed the conditions of an ideal spouse. Ms. May insisted that she was celibate because marriage would hinder her career. Career? The biggest career is nothing more than winning some prizes at the Far Eastern Games, right? Wang said coldly. Your future is to be a physical education teacher and a social butterfly. What about you? Become a female volunteer. Otherwise, join the X party and be dragged out and shot. May also predicted for her, so I predicted everyone's outcome. Miss Zhou Miyu, a modern young woman, who accompanies her husband in social places all day long, never holds a needle or thread, or touches a knife or anvil. Mr. Wheat suffered from hysteria, worked as a housemistress, and was a Catholic. Li Wengshan quickly turned around, wearing a myopia lens with several thousand degrees on his nose, and studied ammonia all day long. As for me, according to their opinion, I am only worthy of marrying a poor scholar and lying in a pavilion reading T. Haldy novel. During the winter vacation after this prophecy, I got married. My husband was neither a scholar nor a poor man. The following summer I dropped out of school due to pregnancy. And Wei also graduated and married an old man in his 60s to fill a house. The eldest son was 10 years older than her. This summer, Zhou and May graduated and left school. As expected, there are only 2 people in school this semester, Wang and Li. Unexpectedly, Li Wengshan died of hemoptysis 10 days ago due to overexertion and his myopia glasses were only equipped to about 800 degrees. Today, the only remaining old guest in the dormitory is Wang Xingyuan, who sits alone on the toilet every day and does the work of walking and thinking.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.